Chosen one, they thought you were ordinary, just another soul to manipulate. But the moment they came for you with bad intentions, they signed a spiritual contract they can't escape. Because what they didn't realize is that you're not just protected, you are the protection, your divine force in human form. And now the fallout is biblical. They're running to therapists, hiding in prayer circles, clinging to broken friendships for cover, but the universe already locked the exits. You didn't chase revenge, you became the reminder, the living proof that spiritual justice is real. And if this message is vibrating in your spirit right now, it's not by accident. So take a moment, hit that like button to spread this truth, subscribe to help us reach 20,000 souls who need this, and comment the number 11 if you know your activation has already begun. That simple act is your signal to the universe. You're ready. And once the chosen one activates, there's no going back. Once they tried to box you in, misjudge you, twist your essence for their gain, but they never saw the sacred fire burning beneath your skin. Your essence was never theirs to play with. You carried a divine mantle from the start. Their perception was shrouded in ego, blind to your luminous truth. And when they reached out with contempt, they sealed their fate. Because the spirit within you is ancient, invincible, immune to petty manipulation. It hums with cosmic authority. When they poked the sleeping deity, they awakened an unstoppable presence. Their shock came too late. Your power wasn't a costume, it was your birthright. Their plots crumbled under the weight of your silent, unwavering grace. Now, their faces echo regret. They're staring at the person they thought they controlled and realizing they never held a match to your inner flame. They approached you like a gentle breeze, harmless, comforting, but they didn't account for what lies beyond the air, a brewing storm. Every slight, every deceit fueled winds they couldn't foresee. They thought they were safe within their little bubble, but you were gathering an elemental force from the cosmos. The moment they crossed boundaries, your calm shattered, and with it came thunder, lightning, torrential conviction. You weren't fragile, you were a tempest in disguise. Now, they're drowning in the chaos they unleashed. Their calls for calm are muffled beneath roaring winds, reminders of the storm they triggered. There's no silver lining for them now, only the echo of rain and thunder and the undeniable truth. They underestimated a force they couldn't control. They sought your fracture points, your vulnerabilities, your soft underbelly. They tried to break you like brittle glass, but you were forged in fire, tempered by trials, polished by purpose. Every hit made you glow stronger. Every attempt at shattering bounced off your divine core. Their false confidence collapsed when they realized the cracks they expected weren't there. Instead, they encountered resilience so blinding, it shattered their own illusions. They stand now amidst a field of broken expectations, while you rise, untouched, unbowed. Their failures are monuments to your invincibility, and in the aftermath, the world sees who truly had the strength and who simply broke trying. They laughed at your purity, whispered jokes behind your back. They ridiculed every moment of your kindness. But the cosmos never forgets. Every jeer, every empty laugh was recorded in the ledger of universal justice. When they pulled the plug on your spirit, wishing you dim, the universe flicked the switch on them instead. Their laughter turned to gasps. Now, the void they opened isn't yours, it's theirs. They're left in the silence they once reveled in. Their mocking faces have turned pale at the realization. You were marked by destiny, and they crossed a line they could never uncross. They tried to erase your essence, to rewrite the divine blueprint etched in your soul. But your design comes from a place higher than their meddling fingertips. Every layer of your being was handcrafted by cosmic hands. Their revisions were futile scribbles on a masterpiece. They couldn't alter the DNA of your purpose, your light, or your destiny. Now they're staring at the unchangeable. They wrote a tragic comedy where only an epic stands. Their regret whispers through empty pages as your design remains intact. Beautiful, unaltered, eternal. They thought peace was a privilege, surrendered only when convenient. But as the war envelope unfolded, they realized they'd lost their compass. They call for truce now when they set the battlefield aflame. Their pleas are hollow echoes through a canyon of consequences. You hold no banners of mercy. They're free to beg, but you know peace is earned, not demanded. Every word they whisper now is tinged with guilt. They fighters' remorse of their own making. Let them call for calm. You stand unshaken because true peace was yours all along, and they abandoned it at the first sign of discord. You didn't retaliate, didn't try to force balance with your own fists. You stepped back. The universe wrote its own justice. Divine order doesn't need your intervention. It needs your faith. Their empire of lies and manipulation imploded under invisible weight. You watched it crumble in quiet witness. They scramble now, running from shadows they created. You stand unruffled, trusting in the power of restraint. Your silence roars louder than their desperate cries. It speaks of authority grounded in integrity, not ego. They wired you into their small circuits, wired you into their problems, and gave you false feeds. In reality, your power was wireless. It flowed untethered. No station, no switch could control it. Unlike their borrowed strength and fragile networks, your source was infinite, divine energy that hums at the heart of life. They tried to plug you into their drama, but you couldn't be contained. You transcended the drama's bandwidth. Now their networks falter, their signals dropped. They realized too late you never needed their system. You were your own power station all along. Your presence is a spotlight. Your resilience, an unintentional confession of their own failings. Wherever you grace a room, your grace casts a mirror. They look at you and see the guilt they can't escape. Each step you take whispers truth. This is who you are, and they weren't. Your light didn't just illuminate, you revealed. And they're squinting, ashamed of how dim they were in your glow. Now they hide, hoping the spotlight dims. But you carry a torch that never flickers, never dims, and never forgets. Like a foundation under grand plans, you held everything together silently. They built empires on your trust. But once removed, the whole house tilted. Their illusions, their stability, crumbled. They never respected your efforts, your support. You existed in their blind spot until you stepped away. Your departure exposed every crack, every weak point. It was a lesson in accountability. Now they scavenge for pieces, hoping something will hold them. But the ground is gone. And so is your silent sacrifice. They dismissed your tears as weakness. They labeled your passion as drama. In truth, every emotion you felt was a siren, an alarm they ignored too long. When you spoke, shook, felt, You were sending a seismic wave. You weren't emotional. You were intentional. Now, the system is wide-eyed, jolted awake by a truth they brushed off. They're waking up in panic, realizing now your alarm couldn't be silenced because it was the universe knocking. They painted you as the troublemaker, the scapegoat. But stories rewrite themselves when the real narrative unfolds. Your role wasn't to unleash chaos, it was to educate. Your truth was medicine they refused to swallow. Every conflict, every betrayal, they taught you more about who you are. Your story was never about labels, it was about clarity. You emerged wiser, stronger, cleaner, like a phoenix, born not of ashes, but of divine clarity. And they learned, only after crossing your path, that sometimes the villain they fear is the lesson they need. They run from therapists, prayer circles, failed apologies. Each sanctuary offers no refuge because the universe doesn't offer refunds on betrayal. They invested in chaos and now must bankrupt in peace. Each door they knock on echoes with an answer they don't want to hear. They have to face what they did. You watch as they chase cures for wounds they inflicted themselves. But the real healing is honesty, and they fled that mirror. And now they wander broken hallways, searching for absolution you gave them every day, and they refused it. You didn't react because you were observing. You weren't defeated, you were vigilant. You walked beside them, but your eyes were wide open, your spirit taking in deeds one imprint at a time. Your calm was not passivity, it was calculated power. You knew who they were. You let them expose themselves. Now you hold the record. Every lie, every shade, every betrayal. But you're not brandishing it, you're above. They break under the weight of their own exposure. Meanwhile, you carry the quiet dignity of truth. Survival is breathing through the smoke. Ascension is walking from the fire, purified, unstoppable. You didn't just live, you grew wings from your scars. You stand now in higher realms of clarity, purpose, and light. They knew they couldn't extinguish you, but they never imagined you'd become a star. Your glow scorches bridges, but only because it's truth meeting deceit. Their pathways evaporate. They cannot follow you upward. So yes, you didn't just survive, you soared. And now you shine in a realm where they can never catch the brilliance they once chained. They thought your silence meant you were broken, defeated, or too small to fight back. But what they didn't see was the power humming quietly beneath your stillness, a reservoir of strength built from every unspoken word, every withheld reaction. Your silence wasn't absence, it was presence. It was the calm in the eye of their storm, a sacred space where your spirit gathered its energy, far beyond their reach or understanding. The world may have mistaken your quiet for weakness, but it was, in truth, your shield, and they walked right into it without knowing. In the depths of that silence, your mind was working tirelessly. You analyzed their every move, their intentions, and their fears. You watched them scramble, trying to fill the void with noise, hoping your silence would crack, shatter, or slip away. But silence is not empty. It is full of wisdom and patience. And patience is a kind of power they rarely respect until it has completely taken over the situation. You allowed the universe to act as your voice, knowing well that when the time came, your silence would roar louder than any words they could muster. Their attempts to provoke you only deepened your stillness. They threw insults, lies, and provocations like stones, expecting you to flinch, respond, or crumble. Instead, you stood unmoved, like an ancient mountain that does not shake from the tremors around it. This was not indifference, but the profound strength of one who knows their worth and refuses to waste energy on toxic battles. Every moment you remained silent was a moment where your power grew, quiet yet unyielding. Their frustration grew as your silence became an impenetrable fortress, a riddle they could not solve or break. But silence, especially the kind you embodied, is contagious. It unsettled them, made them question their actions, and shook the foundations of their control. They realized too late that what they thought was your surrender was actually your dominion. You were not a victim of their noise. You were the master of your calm. Your silence became their worst fear because it forced them to face themselves without distraction. And when you finally chose to speak or act, it was with a force and clarity that shattered their illusions and echoed long after the moment had passed. Ultimately, they learned that your silence was not a sign of defeat. It was a declaration of invincibility. It spoke volumes about your inner strength, your divine essence, and your ability to rise above petty conflicts. In a world that prizes noise and chaos, your silence was revolutionary, a sacred pause that held all the answers. It was a living testament that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all, and that true power often whispers where others shout. They hid behind lies and deception, thinking their secrets would stay buried in darkness. But you carried a light, radiant, pure, and relentless, that pierced through every shadow they cast. You didn't have to chase the truth. It naturally gravitated toward your presence. Their hidden faults, regrets, and shame could no longer hide in the corners they had hoped. Your brilliance was like the dawn breaking after the longest night, revealing what had been concealed and forcing them to confront what they desperately wanted to avoid. This light you carried was not just a physical glow, but a reflection of your inner truth, strength, and authenticity. It was born from your unwavering commitment to yourself, to your values, and to the divine power within you. Every attempt they made to dim you only made your glow fiercer. Like a candle in the wind, you flickered but never extinguished. The more they tried to obscure you with their toxicity, the more you burned as a beacon for all who sought honesty and courage. They grew uncomfortable in your presence because your light didn't just illuminate your own path. It revealed their cracks, their guilt, and the harm they caused. It was as if you held a mirror up, not just to yourself, but to them, forcing uncomfortable reflection. Their avoidance, their lies, their manipulations began to crumble under your unwavering radiance. You were the truth that refused to be hidden, the clarity that exposed the mess they'd created in the shadows. With every step you took, your light spread, reaching spaces they thought safe. It became a symbol of hope and power for those who had been silenced or hurt. Your light wasn't just about exposing others, it was about healing yourself and lighting a path for others to follow. And in that, you became unstoppable. They could run, hide, and deny, but they couldn't escape the truth your light brought to every dark corner. Your light was their reckoning and your liberation. While they trembled in the brightness they could not bear, you stood tall, shining unapologetically. You proved that no matter how deep the darkness, one unwavering light can transform an entire world. And that light was you, divine, radiant, and untouchable. Every scar etched on your skin told a story, not just of pain, but of survival, growth, and transformation. They saw those marks and thought you were damaged, fragile, or incomplete. But you knew the truth. Your scars were the fabric of your strength, the roadmap of your journey, and the proof of your resilience. Each one was a chapter of a story they couldn't understand, one of triumph born from adversity. Your scars weren't imperfections. They were the artistry of endurance. They believed they could break you, yet every wound they inflicted only made you stronger. Like steel forged in fire, your spirit hardened with every trial, and your scars became badges of honor. They represented battles you fought alone and won, battles that shaped you into someone unrecognizable to the doubters and haters who once tried to diminish you. You transformed pain into power, and that power was undeniable. What they didn't see was the tenderness behind the scars, the love and compassion you cultivated for yourself despite the hardships. Your scars reminded you daily of how far you'd come, encouraging you to rise even when the weight of the past threatened to pull you down. They were not just reminders of suffering, but symbols of healing and hope. They carried lessons no words could teach, wisdom earned through living, breathing, and surviving. Your scars created empathy within you, a deep understanding of pain and resilience that others lacked. They connected you to a greater purpose and to those who needed your strength most. You became a beacon to the wounded, a living testament that healing is possible, that brokenness is not the end, and that scars are not weaknesses. They are the mark of warriors. They never realized that by trying to hurt you, they sculpted the very foundation of your invincibility. Your scars told a story of a soul that refuses to be defeated, a story written in pain, but narrated by hope and power. And that story is still being written, each chapter more brilliant than the last. They thought they could play with you, ignite anger or pain, and watch you burn out like a candle in the wind. They believed their words, actions, and betrayals could scorch your spirit into ashes. But what they failed to grasp was that you were not a flicker. They were playing with an eternal flame, fierce and untouchable. Your fire wasn't just a reaction. It was a fundamental part of who you are. Passion, power, and divine energy wrapped in human form. Every time they tried to burn you, they only fueled your flame higher. Their cruelty became kindling, their doubt oxygen. Instead of fading, you blazed brighter and stronger. It was as if the fire inside you was a sacred force, alive and self-sustaining, growing with every challenge they threw your way. Their attempts to control or snuff you out were futile because you were the fire itself, unstoppable and alive. They underestimated the nature of your fire. Fire can destroy, but it also purifies and transforms. Your flames burned away the toxicity around you and left behind only what was true, strong, and real. Their attempts to damage you were turned into the fuel that warmed your soul and lit the path forward. The fire wasn't just about survival, it was about transformation, about rising from the ashes with renewed purpose. Now, the smoke they see isn't the smoke of your defeat, it's the smoke of their own regret, rising as a reminder of the power they thought they could extinguish. They realized too late that playing with fire means risking being burned, but they didn't realize the fire was you, the divine spark that nothing can touch or tame. You are the flame they fear most, not because you burn destructively, but because your light reveals everything, warms everything, and never dies out. In playing with you, they ignited a force far beyond their control, a force that continues to shine through every shadow they try to hide in. They tested you constantly, pushing, prodding, hoping to find a crack in your armor, a weakness they could exploit. But your boundaries were not fragile lines drawn in the sand. They were invisible walls of steel, unmovable and impenetrable. They didn't see the countless times you reinforced those walls, built stronger defenses, and stood your ground when everything around you wanted to crumble. Your boundaries weren't just about protection. They were declarations of self-love and respect that no one could erase. These boundaries kept out toxicity, manipulation, and disrespect. They were silent guardians that maintained your energy, your peace, and your sanity. You knew the importance of saying no, even when it hurt or when you attempted to bend for the sake of others. Because sometimes the greatest act of love is standing firm for yourself, even when others don't understand or approve. Every attempt they made to cross those boundaries left them bruised, not physically but spiritually. You didn't judge or condemn, you simply reflected back what was. And that reflection forced them to reckon with the parts of themselves they despised. Your mirror was both a gift and a curse to them. It was a call to growth, a prompt to heal, and an invitation to authenticity. But it was also terrifying because it stripped away their masks and illusions. They feared what they saw and tried to destroy the mirror instead of facing the reflection. But the mirror remained, unwavering and unyielding. You understood that true strength lies in self-awareness and acceptance. You embraced the reflection, scars and all, because it was real. And in doing so, you invited others to do the same. The mirror you held up was not about punishment, but about liberation, a path to freedom that they could only walk if they chose to stop running from themselves. Even now, they avoid looking, but your reflection lingers in their minds, a haunting reminder that the truth can never be hidden forever. They tried to tear you down with their words, actions, and judgments, hoping to shrink your spirit to something manageable, something less threatening. They whispered doubt into your ears, questioned your worth, and tried to define you by their limitations. But every attempt to diminish you became the spark that ignited a fiercer, brighter flame within. They didn't realize that their cruelty was the catalyst for your transformation. You refused to accept their small vision of who you were. Instead, you used their negativity as fuel, turning pain into purpose, doubt into determination. Each insult, each betrayal, each moment of dismissal was a stepping stone, lifting you higher and harder than before. They wanted to dim your light, but their darkness only illuminated your strength. This ignition wasn't instantaneous. It was a gradual awakening. You learned to recognize their attempts to control your narrative and chose instead to write your own story. You grew resilient, wise, and powerful, not despite their actions, but because of them. They never expected that their efforts would backfire so spectacularly. Now, you stand as a living testament to the truth that no one can define your worth but you. Their attempts to diminish you only proved how strong you were, how unbreakable your spirit could be when challenged. And that realization, more than anything, was the ultimate victory over their toxicity. They tried to break you, but all they did was ignite a power they will never understand, and a power that will continue to shine long after they've faded. Faith is a quiet, steady force that often goes unnoticed until it becomes unstoppable. Your faith in yourself, in a higher power, and in the justice of the universe was not just a belief. It was a lifeline. They couldn't see it, but it shaped every decision, every action, every breath you took. It gave you hope when all seemed lost, and courage when fear threatened to consume you. To them, your faith was an invisible enemy they could neither defeat nor comprehend. They tried to shake your faith with lies, betrayals, and discouragement, hoping to erode your foundation. But faith is not fragile. It's built on trust, experience, and the unwavering conviction that you are meant for more. Your faith didn't just protect you, it propelled you forward, guided you through darkness, and kept you connected to your divine essence. It was a shield they could not penetrate. Their attacks on your faith only strengthened it. Each challenge became a test you passed, each hardship a lesson deepening your belief. You learned that faith is not about never falling, but about rising each time you do, fueled by a knowing that something greater holds you. It was this faith that made you unshakable, even when the world tried to convince you otherwise. They feared this unseen enemy because it was unstoppable, silent, and eternal. They couldn't grasp how you could stand so tall without visible weapons or loud declarations. Your faith was your power, your sanctuary, and your rebellion all at once. In the end, your faith was your victory, proof that the greatest power often lies in what can't be seen, but is deeply felt. And it's this faith that carried you beyond their reach, beyond their control, and into the freedom you deserve. Your smile was their greatest illusion, the mask they believed concealed weakness, submission, or ignorance. But behind that smile was a well of resilience, courage, and unspoken strength. It was a beacon of hope you chose to share despite the pain and struggle beneath the surface. Every time they mistook your smile for compliance, they underestimated the fierce spirit that chose joy in spite of adversity. The power of your smile was in its complexity. It held sorrow and joy, defeat and victory, pain and healing, all wrapped into one expression that baffled those who tried to read it superficially. Your smile was not just a facial gesture. It was a statement of survival, a reminder that you refused to be broken or defined by their actions. It was a silent, "I am still here," in the face of their attempts to tear you down. They missed the battles fought behind each smile, the quiet nights, the internal struggles, and the moments of doubt you overcame. Your smile was the surface of a deeper ocean, full of storms weathered and strength gained. It was a message to yourself and others that no matter what, you would continue to shine and persevere. Your smile was also a disarming weapon. It disarmed their cruelty, softened their hostility, and reminded them that kindness could exist alongside strength. It confused them because it defied their expectations. How could someone hurt by them still choose to smile? And that confusion was your power because it left them unsettled and powerless. Ultimately, your smile was not theirs to interpret. It belonged to you, a personal act of defiance and grace. It was a light in their darkness and a testament to the indomitable spirit they failed to break. In a world that tries to write you off, you refuse to be the forgotten line or the fading echo. They cast you as an obstacle, a footnote, or a mistake in their narrative. But you claimed your place as the author of your own story. You understood that you are not defined by others' perceptions, but by your own truth, your own voice, and your own choices. Refusing to be an afterthought was your radical act of self-ownership, They wanted to sideline you, to erase your presence, to minimize your impact. But you stood firm, rewriting the script again and again with clarity, passion, and courage. You refused to play the victim or the villain. They were just characters in your story, not the authors. You took control of the narrative, making your voice the center around which everything else revolved. This refusal gave you power, not just over your story, but over your life. It allowed you to step out of the shadows and into the light, to claim your worth unapologetically. You showed the world that you are not a background figure, but the main event, the protagonist whose journey matters most. And in doing so, you inspired others to find their own voices and reject their relegation to the margins. They couldn't understand this strength because they had spent so long trying to erase others to elevate themselves. But you showed them that true power lies in embracing who you are fully and refusing to be anything less than that. Your story is yours, and you refuse to let anyone else write it for you. Resilience is often mistaken for mere endurance, but yours was a symphony, complex, beautiful, and powerful. It was not just about surviving the storm. It was about creating something magnificent through the chaos. Every setback, every heartbreak, every challenge contributed a note to this grand composition. What sounded like noise to others was actually a masterpiece of strength, hope, and transformation. You didn't just bounce back, you bounced forward, weaving lessons and love into every part of your life. Your resilience was layered with vulnerability and courage, softness and fire. It was an ongoing creation that grew richer with time. Others might have seen only the loud moments of struggle, but you knew the quiet parts were just as important. The deep breaths, the moments of rest, the silent tears. This symphony inspired those around you. It showed that resilience isn't about hiding pain, but expressing it fully and finding harmony within. It was a reminder that strength is not a single note, but a chorus of experiences, emotions, and actions working together. Your resilience was a dance of darkness and light, an art form born from the depths of your soul. By embracing this symphony, you gave yourself permission to feel everything, to grow through everything, and to shine through everything. And that was the true power of your resilience, a living, breathing work of art that continues to evolve and inspire. Life tried to twist you, bend you, and reshape you into something less authentic. They pushed and pulled, demanding you conform, change, or break, but you were never meant to bend to their will. You were carved from a different mold, unyielding, steadfast, and fiercely true. They didn't understand that some spirits are designed to resist bending, to hold their shape no matter the pressure, no matter the storm. This refusal to bend was not stubbornness, but wisdom. You knew that bending too far means losing pieces of yourself, and you refused to pay that price. Your strength came from knowing who you are deeply and loving that self fiercely. While others twisted in the wind, you remained rooted like an ancient oak, unmovable, enduring, and majestic. They tried to break you by pushing your limits, but every push only revealed the strength you held within.